Well, welcome to the Youth in Government program. Christine said this is the 81st Youth in Government program. I just want to let you know I was not here at the first. I've been to many youth in government programs, but and this is always a really exciting time and a really good learning opportunity for students. Even with the students that will be coming, it's a relatively smaller group than what we've had in the past, and I know it's really hard to leave school, and sometimes your parents or teachers don't want you to leave, but this is a really important learning experience about how your community really works. And I can't stress enough that the topic that you're going to be talking about today, the general plan, is actually something that the city is currently involved in. And so your feedback and your input are really important on this topic. And so I want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank your teachers and parents who let you out or agreed for you to come. It's a really great learning experience. And so please take advantage of the full day, not only here, but once we get to the Rotary Club, who will be hosting you for lunch. And speaking of the Rotary Club, I'm very excited that our current president, Ann Campbell, is there. Ann was the former San Mateo County Superintendent of Schools, so she's very familiar with students, and we're really excited that you're able to join us this morning. I know that everybody will say on your evaluation that lunch is the best part of the day, so you can go ahead and put that down. I would encourage you all, when you get there to the Rotary Club, I know you'll feel really comfortable if you all kind of sit together as students, but please take the opportunity during the meeting to spread yourselves out and really talk to all of the community leaders that are represented in the Rotary Club. It's an amazing group of people who work in the business sector, in government, for nonprofit organizations, in education, and so take the opportunity to talk with them and ask them about their life experiences. Perhaps some of you that mentioned computer science or political science or whatever might find a mentor in that group. So please don't be afraid to spread yourself out and to make sure that you spend time talking with the Rotarians at lunch. So have a great morning. I will see you in and out. I'm happy to introduce Drew Corbett, who is our city manager, and Drew will spend a few minutes talking about how San Mateo operates its government.
I've been with the city for just over 4 years now, and I've been the city manager for about a year. Prior to that, I was the city's finance director. So I just want to talk a little bit about kind of what we do and how we work as a city. At the very top of the City of San Mateo org chart is not me, it's the community, right? The city is the community, right? And so the community is at the top of the org chart. And how that works functionally is the community elects 5 representatives who are our city council, right? And the city council sets policy direction and sets priorities for the city, and then they hire me to execute to that, right? And so you've got the community at the top. The community elects the city council, 5 people elected at large. From those 5, 1 person each year is the city's mayor. This year the mayor is Diane Pappin. And she will rotate out of that position in December, and our new mayor will be selected from the remainder of council. And then again, the city council appoints me to then carry out the policies and priorities of the city, and I'm responsible for that through our various city departments. I love working in city government. I think Mayor Pappin will say something similar, is local government is where things get done. Right, the streets, the parks, the recreation, the traffic signals, the police, the fire, the wastewater treatment plant, which is going through a major upgrade. All of that stuff is a function of the city. Things that you see every day, things that you don't see, but that the services that you use are performed by the city. It's a very exciting time to be a part of the city right now. We're doing some major work on our infrastructure, which is very, very important, right? It's important that when you flush your toilet at home, that wastewater gets treated. We have a large wastewater treatment plant and a collection system to get waste to the treatment plant. It's a $1 billion project. We are right in the middle. We just broke ground on the treatment plant and just approved a major storage facility as well. Hopefully you're seeing all of the street work that we're doing to fix our streets that were not in good condition. We are doing a major update on the city's general plan, which I will not talk a lot about. We'll have our community development director talk about that. But that is basically the plan. Our general plan is the plan for how the city is going to look in 2040. So all of you are very important factors in that, right? Because this is going to be your community, right, in 2040. And we're planning for what that looks like now. So we need a huge cross-section of our community to participate in that effort, because this is going to be, again, where we're looking to go over the next 20 years and what our community is going to look like over the next 20 years. And I know you'll do some exercises today with the community development department to talk about how that process works and how you all can get involved. But if that's one thing I would implore of all of you, of your classmates, is if you want to get involved in that effort. We do workshops, we do outreach. I'll volunteer Kohar and her. This is what happens when you give me a microphone. I volunteer my department heads to do things, to come to the schools, to do presentations. We've done workshops at Hillsdale already. Have we hit any of the other schools besides Hillsdale? Okay. We definitely want to get involvement from everyone in the community, and certainly from the student population who will be living here in 2040. And really, we need you to help shape what it's going to look like. Because I mentioned some of our operations, but I do want to cover sort of everything that we do, right? So the city does public safety. We provide police and fire services. Our fire services is a little unique. We formed a separate agency with the cities of Foster City and Belmont to efficiently provide fire services. We have a department called Public Works, right? And Public Works does everything from the wastewater treatment plant to all of our city engineering, to our roads, streets, traffic. We have our community development department, which Kohar will speak in a little bit, which does all of our city planning and zoning and building permitting, making sure our buildings are safe. We have our Parks and Recreation department. We have all of our city administrative functions, like our finance department, our human resources, information technology. So we have a wide variety of things that we do, and that's, again, why I love it so much is something new every day. There's always stuff going on, and we've always got a lot we're thinking about. So, and I have to introduce my favorite mayor, Diane Pappin.
So Drew has explained to you sort of the organization of city government, and I thought I'd then sort of let this play out a little bit. So over here, tell me your name. Allison. So Allison is sitting where Drew sits, actually. So you're sitting in the city manager's seat. And tell me your name. Anisha. So you sit where the assistant city manager sits, and then who sits there? No one usually? Okay, we'll make you both the assistants. You are somebody. Tell me your name. Alice? Nice to meet you. Okay.
Sit here and be the city clerk.
Oh yeah, this is a very important role. Come over here, because you kind of run everything. You're the person I look at for most of the meeting to tell me what to do next. Are you up to that task? Excellent, excellent. Okay, so you're lucky you sat in the seat where there is a male council member. So tell me your name. Good morning, Adam. Okay, so you can be Rick Bonilla. And your name? Monacy. So you are Maureen Frescott. You guys need to move over just a little bit. But that's okay. Stay where you are. Jennifer, you'll be the mayor. You're me. And what's your name? Jonna. So you can be Eric Rodriguez. He usually sits sort of where you are. Or you, and you can be, tell me your name? Jonna? Yana. And you will be Joe Goethals. So there you are. So you're me, Jennifer. You and I. We're simpatico today. And tell me your name? Brianna. And what is your name? You, I know. All right. So usually we have staff that sits here, and they're the ones that give the presentations on whatever subject matter is coming up. So I'll kind of throw one out to you in a minute, and we can kind of hammer that out. Don't worry, I haven't forgotten about you guys. So tell me your name. Amanda and Milika. Milika. Miko? My daughter's just directing me. And your name? Isabella. Okay. So you're city attorney, just so you know. And usually we have like this gentleman in the back. See that guy right there? Ron Munikawa. He does a lot of our planning, and so he'll usually sit here in one of these two seats and direct us on, what we're being tasked to handle, make sure we stay on task. Fair enough to say, Ron? Look at he's being very low key. Don't ask. Okay. So I figured I'd come up with Sheila, who you heard from originally. She is head of Park and Rec. And one of the things that we're doing right now in the city of San Mateo is that we are trying to develop a Park and Rec facilities master plan. So we are a city of 100,000 people. You can go to other cities and they'll have one rec center. We have six. We have six. They were all built like in the 60s, 110 years ago. And a lot of them really need a lot of upgrading. Some of them we can't even have programming at. Usually you go to Beresford or you might go to Central Park to go like do a park and rec program and that kind of thing. So a lot of them we actually just rent out for childcare because we have a great need for childcare here in the city of San Mateo. But we are taking on this project whereby we're going to figure out how we can upgrade each of those facilities and make them change format and be more useful to us as a city. But it's just a lot to take on because it's 6 different facilities, and then we might build one. And we'd like to build one maybe, over at Bay Meadows. Because you know how Bay Meadows has that new park? Everybody been out to Bay Meadows and the new park that they have out there? But the people that live in Bay Meadows have said, a lot of them are troubled by the fact that we would like to build a building out on that park. So if we were taking this up, let's just say at a city council meeting, you would say, Madam Mayor, next item up on the calendar is the facilities master plan. So go ahead and give that a shot. Talk to Jennifer and let her know what's going on.
Madam Mayor, next item on the plan is the facilities.
Good. Facilities master plan.
Facilities master plan.
Right. And so one thing you'll learn in city government is nothing happens unless you get a plan, because you have to figure out what you're going to do, and that takes a lot of input. And then once you've adopted a plan, what happens next? Any ideas? You got to find the money. Nothing happens without money. So you need a plan, and then you got to go get some money for it. However, that's going to happen. And sometimes we have money in our general plan, which is money that's already come in the door, or sometimes we have to figure out how to raise money, which might be additional taxes. You don't know. You don't know how you can fund certain things. So let's get back to our facilities master plan, and coming up for this item is what, where, and how can we maybe build another facility. And one of the things that's been contemplated, because a lot of people think it's very important to have a really substantial aquatics program. Swimming is a life skill that everybody needs. And does anybody know where we have swimming pools already in the city that are run by the city? Anybody know? King Center is one. We have one other one. Joinville. Joinville is over in, our Shoreview neighborhood, right? Yeah, it is in Shoreview. I just had to make sure. I know where it is. I just had to make sure it was classified as Shoreview. So, but those are really old pools. And the question has come before us, do we just update those pools? Or maybe we should build this aquatic center. Like there's one like down in Morgan Hill, it's indoor. You have the lazy river, right, Sheila? And a lot of things that you can do besides just going in, swimming laps, and learning how to swim. So do we build this facility whereby it can really be a lot of recreational swimming as well as the swimming lessons, learning that life skill of swimming, making sure that you're always safe around the water. And then we'd also probably, like during the day when you guys are at school, we'd probably have seniors that would come in and do senior exercising in the pool and stuff. But pools are expensive to maintain, be a lot for the city to take on. And then you got the Bay Meadows folks who are saying, we just want to remain a park. We're not sure we want this big facility. So, Madam Mayor, at any given moment on this particular subject, which has, 2 sides to it, and when you sit on the city council, you have to weigh both sides. You could have this auditorium filled up with people saying, yes, by God, I want a new what we call it a lifestyle center, or people saying, don't build it in my park. I want that park for open space. And you'll have any number of speakers. Do you see that little clock in front of you that says 3 minutes? So normally we can time it depending on how many people are here to speak. It's anywhere between 2 and 3 minutes. And sometimes we have so many people, like if we have You might have 30 speakers at 3 minutes a pop. So you're talking about an hour and a half. And some people say the same thing over and over again. So we try to really tell people, if you've already heard it, just let us know that yes, you concur with that idea, and maybe all 30 speakers won't come. But in any event, the minute you start to speak, the clock starts to tick down. So it'll be 2:59, 2:58. And I have to watch, because some people will go on and they'll go over 3 minutes. And then they get really mad at me when I have to hit the gavel and say, I'm sorry, but we have to go on to the next speaker. But nonetheless, we do have to restrict public comment just to those, those moments. A lot of times we take in material by written emails and whatnot. I get a lot of emails in my inbox to tell me, how would I feel about this and how do you want it? So people will come down, they give speaker slips to you, Madam Clerk, and then you will announce the next speaker. You start the clock, the person will make a presentation, and they're usually very nervous. I mean, I myself, even though I've been on the city council for 4 years now and I'm serving as the mayor, when I have to go speak, not here, but when I have to speak like at a city council meeting, sometimes I have to go to other city council meetings, I myself get nervous. So people are very nervous and they speak very quickly, or whatever human nature is like. But so what would happen if we brought this item? You would call it up. Then you guys as the staff would make a presentation from here, and usually you can operate what goes up on the screen, and you'd tell us all about the pros and the cons and how much it would cost and all those good things. And then it would go to council. And if we had questions as staff, we usually direct them to staff, or we might say to the city attorney, do we have the legal right to pass this motion at this moment in time? And so the city attorney will give us some advice, or like Ron, who's the head of the planning department. Ron, you guys would say, listen, we're going to build this. We're only going to build it once. It's going to last for 50 years, but you can only use this much land, or whatever it may be. I'm just coming up with different ideas of legalities. So that's kind of how this issue might play out. And then what happens is we open up for public comment after we've asked our questions. Public comment comes and they say, I don't want this, or yes, oh my God, I want this. This is the most important thing to our community, blah, 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 blah. Then we close public comment. Then it comes back to council and we deliberate, and sometimes we make a decision. Most of the time we make a decision. There are times when we fight amongst ourselves, but we can only do it in public. So I'm going to tell you one more aspect that really throws a monkey wrench into sometimes how the city council makes a decision, and it's called the Brown Act. So if you leave here with nothing today other than, let me tell you about the Brown Act and how things work for us in light of the Brown Act. The Brown Act says all business of government must be conducted in public. Transparency is key. You cannot make decisions behind closed doors. So what that means for you, body of 5 that's sitting up there, no more than 2 of you can talk about a certain item privately. If it becomes 3 of you, that is a majority. And that means that you have done something behind closed doors that is not allowed. So sometimes if I am concerned about an issue, I will Brown Act another council member. So you and I might just talk about this item. And that means you and I cannot talk to a third person. Not only that, we can't get somebody else. I can't say to the clerk, can you go find out how so-and-so feels about this? Because I already know tell me your first name again? Yana, that Yana and I have already talked about this. So go find out what Adam thinks. Not allowed. Not allowed at all. Can't do it by a conduit. Only you and I, Yana. If we talk about it, that's it. So that kind of throws a monkey wrench in it. So after we close public comment and we come back up here, we really don't know. I mean, sometimes I might know, one of my colleagues has an opinion about something just because I kind of know where they are, generally speaking. But a lot of times I don't. So the real hashing out of this issue and whether or not we should keep Bay Meadows as open space or build this lifestyle center, we're going to do it right here. And we'll see what happens. And sometimes things go your way, meaning my way or the other person's way, and sometimes they don't. So we just don't know. All right, any questions of me? No? Oh my God, is this group alive? I'm here. What? I've just given you the whole scenario. Well, let me ask you this. Tell me your first name again? Jonna. Now that I've laid that all out for you, and it's come back to the council, and you'd like to convince your colleagues up there, all 5 of them, which way would you go on the subject? Just given the limited amount that you know. I don't expect you to know every nuance of it.
I would say not to build a building there because it is nice to have an open space. A lot of kids play soccer there, or people walk their dogs or have picnics in the summer especially.
Mm-hmm. But you've just heard from 20 people who say it's a lifestyle skill, a life skill to be able to swim. Our pools are getting older in this city. How are you going to address that part of it?
I think we should. I think we should update our other pools and maybe open the CSM one up to more people.
Ooh, thinking outside the box. I like it. We don't have control over CSM, but I appreciate your thinking outside the box, for sure. Now, do your colleagues agree with you? Maybe you have a question of staff. Maybe staff can tell you they took a survey, and you might want to know what that survey revealed. So staff, would you like to just pretend what you think the survey yielded? You took, how many people did you ask to take your survey?
Okay, we asked 1,000 people
Okay,
in like the whole San Mateo area.
got it.
Okay. And then
And did they say up or down on because Jonna needs to know. She wants to she's heard the public, but she kind of needs to know a little more information. What do you think tell us what you think the outcome was of the survey.
70% of people say they support the new pool being built there.
Oh, okay, all right. And maybe, tell me your first name? Montesi. And maybe you want to ask the city attorney's office, are you bound by that? How should you weigh that survey? Or maybe the city manager and assistant city manager can say, well, how do you incorporate that into your decision making? The survey.
are we legally bound with we're not legally bound by a survey. It's just to see what everyone wants.
I would say that's an excellent answer to that question. Thank you to the city attorney. Okay, and does that influence you at all, Montesi? Tell me.
Yes, because that means that although we can like take it into consideration, but it's not like a huge like deciding factor in the decision.
Okay. And Adam, how do you feel? Was it scientific enough for you?
I was thinking I would ask, how does the survey break down geographically? Like, are people nearby more in favor or more against it?
I think that's a legitimate question. Maybe you should pose that to staff and they can tell you. And maybe they don't know, but you can ask. Staff, was that survey taken throughout the entire city or for those closer in?
Geographically speaking, the 30% of people that were not in favor of the new lifestyle center being built were in the Bay Meadows area.
Does that help you make a decision, Jennifer? Let's say you have a split council. Two are, what did you say? You're not in favor or in favor? I can't remember where you were on it. You want to be in favor? You were more open space, were you not? Okay. What about you? Where do you want to be in all this? You need to decide. No, actually, you might as well say, well, I can be bought. Like, no, I'm kidding. I tease you. I'm teasing. What does your gut tell you? I'm curious because, these are really decisions actually for you, because I'm kind of an old fart. Like, you'll be around a lot longer. So in actuality, I guess I am a little bit more intrigued with what your thoughts are on it.
Well, I do feel like we should build a new community center, like aquatic kind of thing. Definitely not in Bay Meadows, but maybe at like Joinville or the other one. Because I know a lot of people in Shoreview would probably appreciate that. I know a lot of people there, so.
And it's funny you should say that, because a lot of people think, let's keep something on the east side of the freeway. Whereas, but Bay Meadows is a little more central. So it's interesting that you bring up, should we keep it in Shoreview? So you are a build, and you two are a build, is that right? And you are at open space. Madam Mayor?
I am for what the people think, and if the people believe that if they truly want to have the center built, especially people in the area, if they do or do not, I think that should be the main factor, since they are the ones who are around the area and are the ones who are going to be, driving by, walking by, like going into the So as much as it benefits the people, I feel like it should be something they want, not something they have to.
Well, yeah, and then we divide it up. Is it the people just around there, or should you be listening to the city of 100,000?
I think the city.
The city as a whole. Okay, that's interesting. Well, I think what I'd like to do is come over here to the city manager's office and ask them if this will cost us, Sheila, give me a ballpark. 45 million. Are we going to have any money in the future? How do you think, what should we do if we create this plan and it's just like we could never get that 45 mil? Any ideas on how we might be able to get that 45? Because Drew will tell you, Drew, we don't have 45 million just sitting around that's unallocated for. So tell me what, any ideas? And then we'll see if your city council supports whatever way you've talked about to try to find money.
I think one thing we would have to do if we were going to implement such big of a thing, we would have to add more taxes, definitely. And we could possibly, if it's something that most of the city is in favor of, look into taking money out of the general plan, since that has to do with like all of the city's money as a whole.
Yeah. Although most of the general fund is spoken for. Now, there are different kinds of taxes. What kind of taxes do you like? Do you like a sales tax? Do you like a property tax? Those are kind of the two big ones that come to mind. There might be some others, but we have what we call hotel taxes. We could raise those a lot because then our citizens don't pay for it, but it's not quite enough, and it really depends on whether our hotels stayed busy, so those are not too reliable.
I would say a property tax would probably work.
Okay. Do you think the city council might be worried about getting reelected if they really raise a whole bunch of property taxes? Tough decisions though, right? Because we have a community that has needs. And it would be a really great thing for our community to have better aquatics. I mean, I'm sure Aragon or Hillsdale could, or San Mateo could open up their pools a little more for us, maybe. I don't know. They don't seem to be offering. You mentioned CSM. Yes, sir.
We were talking about like what kind of tax. I'd probably be interested in like demographics on who would be using the pool, whether it be wealthier citizens.
So you'd like to tie the tax more to the group that would benefit the most. Interesting. And you have fees too. Remember, probably won't be free to get in, but you can't charge too much, right? Because then people will go, oh my gosh, it's too expensive. I might as well just go to a private club and pay the same fee for their pool. So kind of a complex issue, isn't it? Although at first glance, you'd either say, hey, I want open space, or hey, I think it'd be great to have this pool. And so these are the things we banter about, and then we always come back to how do we pay for it, right? And like you guys might be the Park and Rec department right here, and the Park and Rec department might be saying, we have a limited budget. What is it you want us to do? And we have to program for tennis lessons, and where you're going to go today at lunch is Poplar Creek. Poplar Creek is a public golf course. We got to pay to keep that going. So Park and Rec could put a real damper on our vision, right? What do you say? Park and Rec. You got a lot of other programs. Can't you give up some of these programs?
Well, it depends on the community first. Like, do they want to give up these programs? Because these programs are based on them. Because it's community over everything when it comes to this.
That's right, and that's what you see up in that organization. And Sheila Kanzian, who's head of Park and Rec, she would probably love to hear what you're saying, because that's exactly kind of how she operates. Is it what the community wants? And she spends a lot of time trying to figure out what the community wants and has a lot of meetings. There was a hand over here that did somebody have a question? And by the way, I saw you guys talking amongst yourselves. Can't do that either. No, you can't. You can't. Every now and again, like I'll whisper, or somebody will say, Diane, you need to do this in the meeting. And so, like, especially if I'm you, and somebody next to me invariably will say, you need to cut off public comment, or, whatever it is. Not cut it off, but those are the ideas of things that come up. All right. So, yes.
Let me make a point about the taxes.
Oh, yeah.
For example, the council decides, be a good idea. We want to do this. Let's do a tax measure. So who approves that? City council wants to implement or increase a tax, or implement a new tax. Who gets to say yes to that? Does council get to decide? Who decides on that? Okay. layer of complexity here is city council does not get to decide to implement a new tax. The voters do. California law, right? So there's all of these complex things with something like the recreation facilities master plan or any of the big initiatives that we do. It's here's what we want to do, how do we pay for it, what are the trade-offs, and is the community going to want it, and are they going to want it enough to tax themselves to do it, right? Because if we wanted to, there is a way to increase property tax to pay to borrow money to build a big facility. But it requires 2/3 of the voters, not just a majority, 2/3 of the voters to pass. So you've got to have significant community backing in order to make that happen. We did that to build the library, right? Our voters, way back when, voted to tax themselves, voted to increase their property tax so that we could borrow money to build the main library downtown, right? But that doesn't always work. So there's got to be, so you may have a lot of members of the community say, I want a new recreation facility, but then when it comes down to how do you pay for it, and they say, well, I want a new rec facility, but I don't want to tax myself to pay for it, right? And you have to get 2/3 in order to do that. So that's a pretty big hurdle. So that's one of the challenges, because it's either you take your existing money, which typically cities don't have $45 million lying around to build a facility. You opt to tax yourself. Your community opts to tax itself so they can borrow the money to build the facility and then pay that money back. Or you don't do something else. Do you want to build a new facility if it means you have to close another down? Or if you have to stop programming? Those are the trade-offs that we have to deal with and that council has to deal with. And a lot of times what we'll find is that we will have an issue, right? And it'll come up and there'll be a lot of people with very strong feelings about that issue, and they'll write council and send emails and make phone calls. And the council will be there and they think you have a good feel for the community sentiment. And then we'll have the public meeting. And the whole rest of the councils chambers will be filled with people who think the exact opposite, right? It's difficult. It's difficult to do the public's business. So I love it. It's great, and there's always something new, something controversial, something interesting, but it's hard. It's hard to do the public's business because it's very difficult to get consensus of the community on really difficult issues. So.
True that. True. And I want to come back to what you were saying about you got to poll the community. So let's say you've got a lot of seniors and they're not doing a lot of swimming, right? But then you have a lot of people who have young kids and they're like, I really want my kid to learn how to swim. So that causes tension even based on age and whatnot. So we've got the other folks from Peninsula High School. Welcome, come on in. So we were just pretending we were handling an issue. So I'm the mayor of San Mateo. I'm Diane Pepin. This is city manager Drew Corbett. So, and we are concluding because I think you have to move on to another thing. But what I'm going to leave you with is this, because what we talked about a lot is you have to gather consensus. Drew, that was the last word he used, gathering consensus within the community. But by the same token, you have to show some leadership, Madam Mayor up there, Jennifer. And so I always wonder, what am I doing in this job as mayor? Am I just gathering consensus from the people that are in the community? And again, they might have very different point of views. Some people might want the pool built. Some people might want open space. So what do you do? And then when do you lead? So there's a lot of tension between representing and leading. And so I've thought a lot about this, and my feeling is now serving on the council for 4 years and now as the mayor is that you do the following. You try to build as much consensus as possible. That's your representing, right? You're representing the community. And then once you kind of find that sweet spot where the consensus is, you lead like hell. So that's my philosophy on it. So maybe it is that we don't take away all the open space, we just take away a part of it. Maybe we don't build quite as big, it won't cost $45 million, maybe it's a little less, but it still is a rec center and a pool that is not only just recreation and, not only just where you learn to swim and you do some laps, but also provide some recreation. All right, so that's kind of what we took up. We took up whether or not we should build a pool here in San Mateo that is really big and is not only just a place where you go to swim laps, but where you can actually, they have a lazy river and they do some other stuff. And where would you put it? Land is a commodity, and then how would you afford it? And so each of these folks, this was the city manager's contingency. They were the city council. This is the city clerk. These guys are the staff that give the report on what it's going to look like, how much it's going to cost. This is the city attorney, and this is the additional staff, the head of Park and Rec. So we went through that model, and I just thought I'd fill you in. And welcome, good morning. We're so glad to have you here.
Good morning. How are you? You don't sound very good. How good are you? Come on. You're here, you're late, you're feeling like you missed some things, but we'll bring you right up to speed, all right? So, good morning. My name is Bruce Bean. We are going to teach 5 imperatives of public speaking today. You will be tested on this. Oh, okay. What does that mean? All of a sudden, when you feel like you're going to be tested, you might actually remember some things, right? Okay. So 5 things. That's all we need to learn. You can use these 5 items throughout the rest of your life. So learn them well, and you can then become a professional, efficient public speaker. All right. So number 1. Blind date. Who does not know what a blind date is? Oh, good. I was afraid that maybe in this digital world, nobody knew what a blind date is anymore. So what do you do on a blind date? When you first arrive, what do you want to do? You want to make a good first impression, right? So you want to kind of dress well. Maybe you don't want to dress too flashy because you want to remember them for who you are and what you say. In public speaking, you want them to hear what you're saying, but not hear your clothing. You want to say afterwards, well, okay, I remember Bruce was speaking about 5 imperatives. I remember exactly what those 5 imperatives were. I don't remember exactly what he was wearing. He looked okay, but I don't remember what that was. I heard what he was saying. So make a good first impression. Do you realize that your first impression, how long do you think it takes to get a first impression? Anybody? 5 seconds. Oh yeah, that's exactly about right. 5 to 7 seconds. So within that first 5 to 7 seconds, you've already decided, oh my God, this guy is lame up here, or he's okay, he might be okay. All right, so on a blind date, make sure you make a good first impression. Number 2, romance with the eyes. That means make eye contact. Try and look at everybody in the audience. Try and make some contact with them. Make sure you're looking at them. See them. Look at the back of the room. See if you can see them in the back of the room. Yeah, she's waving at me. Thank you very much. So that's good. So look at the back room. Look at the front room. You don't have to look long, but try and make some eye contact. Don't be scared. It's okay. You can make eye contact. All right. So blind date, make a good first impression, make eye contact. Number 3, apologize not. Now, I could tell you this morning that our hot water heater went out, and I had to take a very cold shower this morning, and that's why I'm up here a little crazy, but apologize not. My dog did not eat my homework. I have done public speaking before. Don't say that I've never done this before. I'm not good at this. I lost my information on the way over here. I was late. Don't apologize. Have you ever gotten a gift where they give you the gift? It's a beautiful box. And they say, oh, there's a return receipt in the box. It's kind of like, well, gee, maybe this gift isn't that good if you think I'm going to return it. All right? So apologize not. Get up there, be confident, and go. All right. Number 4, apologize not. Variety and spice. So let's hit the next slide. What does variety mean? So give examples. For example, I had a cold shower this morning. Or tell a story. If you have a story of how you got here, why you were late, there was traffic, there was a problem. If there's a quote you happen to know, bring in a quote. If you can bring in some engaging facts, that's always very interesting. So use all kinds of variety in your approach. Common illusion. Does anybody know what common illusion means? Anybody want to take a guess? Common illusion would be like a television show or a movie or some common illusion that we all might know that we can share together. All right, so then there's another factor to variety, and that's variety of voice. So you have pause. Pause is the greatest item to use in public speaking, because people, if you pause, people are going to all of a sudden think, well, wait, what happened? He stopped. They might actually look up from what they're doing and realize they have to listen to you. Then there's volume. You can speak loudly or you can speak quietly. Use volume in all sorts of ways. Rate, you can speak very quickly. Some of you are very fast talkers. You, in particular, need to actually slow down. So use slower words if you can. Go a little bit slower, go a little bit faster. Then pitch. Pitch is whether you speak at a high level or a low level. So pitch is that, and then inflection. You can inflect or enunciate depending on your situation. So use variety in all sorts of ways. All right. And now, how many of you have suffered death by PowerPoint? Okay, come on, admit it. Okay, it's very common. Death by PowerPoint occurs. We aren't going to go through the 10 commandments of death by PowerPoint. I'm just going to give you this one tip. If you are doing PowerPoint, use mostly images, and only 10 words per slide at the most. Maybe only one word, maybe most 10 words, all right? That way you will avoid death by PowerPoint, all right? All right, now we're going to go on to the 5th item. One more, the most important item here today, which we're all going to do, is end early. Premature evacuation. It took them a little while. They're thinking about that one. All right, end early. Okay, so if your talk is going to be, boy, there's a delayed crowd here. All right, they finally got it. Okay. Okay, all right. Christine's waving. All right. All right, here we go. End early. So if I am going to give I was going to go 30 minutes today, but I'm going to end very early. So we're going to have the 5 imperatives. We're going to end very quickly. So in the speech today that 2 of you are going to do at the Rotary Club, we are going to give them how long to speak? 2 or 3 minutes to speak each? So if you go 3 minutes, if you're given 3 minutes, go 2 minutes and 45 seconds. All right? Always end early. End before your expectation happens. All right? So end early. And finally, there's this umbrella over these 5 imperatives. The umbrella is, what are the first 2 letters of umbrella? Take out your filler words. So and really, like. Like's the only one of these filler words that does not come at a natural pause point. So if you can just take your filler words and eliminate them and put in a pause, people will think you're much smarter. That's a good thing. When you go, I really don't know what I'm going to say here today. It's maybe not quite the image you want. So if you take out your filler words, the English, for example, do not have as many filler words as Americans do. So English naturally sound much smarter than we do. So just think about that. You can immediately seem much smarter. Okay, so okay and you mean. All right, so next slide, please. All right, you have just gotten the 5 imperatives. You've got the umbrella. You are now going to be tested. So I want you to quickly pair up into 2s. So twos, twos, twos. All right. 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. Oh, got one over. And you want to work with the gentleman in the red there? Oh, okay. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to introduce each other. All right? We're going to quickly introduce each other. So we're going to take a few minutes here, and you're going to say their name correctly. All right? First of all, you're going to say their name correctly. Then number 2, why are you here today? Now you can say, well, I just wanted to get out of class. Actually, you don't say it. The other person says it for you. All right? Or you can say, I want to be President of the United States, or I want to become the mayor of San Mateo. Whatever your reason is for being here, just have the other person tell the other person what you're going to do, and then what you'd like to learn today. Is there something you'd like to learn today? I always love learning what students are interested in when it comes to student government. And then number 4, one interesting fact about the other person. So for example, remember, for example, use variety. For example, I ride a unicycle. Interesting fact. Also, another interesting fact is that I won 2 blue ribbons at the County State Fair for pie baking. Okay? Interesting fact. All right. And finally, the last thing. Have you ever been introduced to somebody, or somebody comes up to you and says your name, and then you talk for a few minutes, and then all of a sudden you leave and you realize, what was that? What was that person's name? What did they say their name was? All right. So reintroduce this person, say their name correctly again. So, for example, I'm going to give you a quick example here. All right. We have here today Christine, see, I goofed up already. Christine Peralta. Well, I got the second part right. Okay, Christine Peralta. She is the Community Services Supervisor. You're in charge of today, right? Or one of the people in charge today? Okay, all right. Christine loves student government. She loves to have the students here every day. And as you have already learned, Christine is going to get married in 3 weeks. All right? So I would like to introduce you again to Christine Peralta. Give her a round of applause. All right, so quickly pair up. We're going to give like 1 minute for each side. 2 minutes to figure this out, write a few things down, and then you're going to do an introduction. All right, ready, go. Yes, absolutely. You can use your notes. Notes are invaluable for public speaking, so use your notes. Try not to, so try not to read your notes. Let me give you, so try not to go like this and say, this is my new friend, and I'm introducing her. So if you want to use the Winston Churchill method of public speaking, is you look at your notes, you pause, you look at your notes, and you memorize what you're going to say, and then you look up, you make eye contact, and you say what you're going to say, and when you want to look back at your notes, you pause again, look back at your notes, and then look up and speak. So look down, read, look up, and speak, okay? Okay. All right. So now wait a minute, before you get started, the next group of 2 right here, stand up, get ready. We're going to do this quickly. All right.
Okay. This person right here is Amanda. She's here today because she wants to learn how government works in general. Additionally, she also wants to learn about how to campaign on a local government scale. One interesting fact about her is she's actually volunteering to campaign for Kamala Harris right now. And again, this is Amanda.
We give applause to all public speaking. All right.
Hi everyone. I want to introduce Alexa. She's here today because she's interested in government and she likes getting to know people that are also interested in government. and she wants to learn how the community affects the government, the higher government. And one interesting fact is that her mom is the mayor. And again, I want to introduce Alexa.
All right, very good. Okay, next two stand up.
All right. This is Monty's survey. She's here today because she wants to become more involved in government, and she wants to learn about how the government works. She is the president of Mock Trial and Model UN at our school. And once again, Monty's survey. Okay. Okay, this is Alice Barreras. Alice is here today because she's very interested in the government and wants to learn more about how it works. And once again, she wants to learn like the inner workings of government, how community affects it. And one interesting fact about Alice is that she's originally from Chicago. Once again, this is Alice Barreras.
Make sure you make eye contact. Make some eye contact. All right. Okay, next group. Next group come over. Go ahead. All right.
All right. This is Yana. She's here today because she dislikes injustice and wants to learn how to address it through government. One interesting fact about her is that she is the president of the senior class at Aragon High School. And once again, this is Yana.
All right, so this is Brianna. She wants to learn more about how local government is conducted, as well as how to get involved in the San Mateo community. And an interesting fact about her is that she's on the Youth Activities Council. And yeah, this is Brianna.
All right, Brianna and Yana. That's a good combination.
Okay, so this is Malika, and she is she's interested in the political field. She wants to learn. What she really wants to learn today is like how the government really works with like different people and like kind of like the minorities and like other like racial groups. And an interesting fact about her is she's Tongan, Yuvan, and German. And her name's Malika.
Okay. This is Jennifer. She's always been interested in government and working here in general. She wants to learn everything and anything about political field in general. One interesting fact about her is that her and her siblings have different last names. And again, this is Jennifer.
All right, I want you two just to stand up here and make eye contact with each person. Just go ahead, look at them. Hey, okay. Now look over here. I want you to look over here. All right, okay, good. All right, next group is, let's see, these two? And then the following group, why don't you two come over here? Oh, you two, okay. All right.
Okay, hi, this is Isabella. She's here today because she wants to learn about the decision-making process. And one interesting fact about her is that she plays the viola.
And what's her name again?
Isabella.
Isabella, okay.
All right, so this is Anisha, and she is here because she thinks this field trip is more interesting than being in class.
Okay, all right. Okay,
Yeah.
Good.
Something she wants to learn today is what happens when there's a conflict. And something interesting about her is that she plays the piano. Once again, this is Anisha.
No, give us that final. This is who?
Anisha.
This is Anisha. You really give it to her.
This is Anisha.
All right. Okay. Good work. Okay. Next group, come up.
Hi. This is Allison. She is here because she's part of a political activism group, and she thinks she should have a connection to the community. She wants to learn more about how the city government works because she's familiar with the county and wants to know the differences. And she is a part of the San Mateo Youth Commission. That's the interesting fact, and this is Allison.
Hi, this is Adam, and he's here today because he's interested in being part of government in the future, and he wants to learn about the council's perspective on different issues. And a fun fact about him is that he is president of Quiz Bowl at his school and co-president of Model UN. And once again, this is Adam.
Very good. Next two.
This is Jada, and she came here today to learn about how the city works. And then one fun fact about her is she's a huge Hamilton fan. And this is Jada.
Hi, this is Jasmine. She's here because she was asked to come, and she found it would be really interesting to figure out how the city works compared to the county. And she wants specifically to find out what the mayor does, as well as the rest of city council. And she's the youngest of 5 siblings. Again, this is Jasmine.
All right. So have you been to Hamilton? Okay, good.
So Jorge Martin is the individual in the red shirt there. He's here today because he wants to see what the city council is like. He's watched it on television as part of a school assignment, and he was curious to see it in person today. He's also very interested in learning about the community of San Mateo and how it operates. And an interesting fact about him is that he has 2 younger siblings, both a younger brother and a younger sister. And it's a pleasure to introduce Jorge Martin to all of you.
And I would like to introduce you to Ann Campbell. She is the president of Rotary this year. She loves student government. She was the superintendent of schools, so she loves students too. And an interesting fact is that she had an Australian Shepherd, I believe, and gone now, but my daughter currently has an Australian Shepherd, so we have something very in common. Ann Campbell. Okay, give her a round of applause. All right, you all got A pluses. We're off to the next item. Thank you very much. How many of you can remember the 5 imperatives? Okay, what was the first one? Okay, good. Second one? Eyes, get those eyes. All right. Third one? Don't make those apologize. Fourth one? Variety. Use variety. And finally, the 5th one, the most important one? End early. Okay.
Good morning. Good morning. There we go. Good morning. I'm Kohar Kojayan. I'm the Community Development Director. How many of you know what community development is? I didn't think so, because I didn't either until I had my first internship in community development. So community development has 4 separate divisions. We have the planning division, which you're going to hear about in a little bit. We have the building division, the housing division, and then code enforcement. So I'm just going to give you a really brief overview of what all that means and how they work together. So planning, which you're going to be hearing about, is the department, the division where things are planned. Hence the word planning. So we talk about the future growth of San Mateo. We talk about where things can go, how big they can be, what kind they can be, the use, whether it's a retail Hillsdale shopping center or whether it's a single family home. We plan the layout of the city. We talk about how wide, how deep, how the setbacks, how far from each other they need to be. And then we approve them just very conceptually. We look at the design and we approve them in what we call planning entitlement. Then we get to building, which is the other division, which is about 20 people here in San Mateo, and that's where we actually get the permits to build it. So planning approves it conceptually, looks at the design, and then when it gets to building, they actually permit it. They look at how wide does that piece of wood need to be in order to hold up the second story? Is it a 2 inches by 4 inches? How deep does that nail need to go? So they look at all the various details of how it needs to go, and then they inspect it. So we issue the permits, we review it, our engineers look at it, and then they go out into the field and they look at it and they make sure that what was on the paper is actually what they're building. Then there's housing, and housing kind of is not necessarily involved with building or planning, but it is a part of it. And in our housing division, they work on affordable housing. So they look at where and how can we provide more affordable housing in the city of San Mateo? What are some programs that we can put in to help people improve their homes? And we call that the CDBG. There's monies that we get from the state, from the federal government, that we then distribute to help people change their roofs who can't afford to. So that's the housing division. And then last but not least, it's code enforcement. And code enforcement takes a look at, we have code books, they're about this big each, and nobody has them fully memorized, but we do get complaints. Somebody is building something illegally. Our code enforcement officers go out and they stop it, and they make them come in and get the proper permits, because at the end of the day, what's built needs to be safe for the neighborhood, for the community as a whole. There could be something that's causing fumes to go up that are not properly ventilated, and we take a look at that and we make sure that they come in and get the proper permits. So that's community development in a nutshell. I'm going to turn it over to Ron Munakawa. Diane mentioned him earlier. He is our chief of planning, so he oversees the planning division, and he's going to walk you through what does it mean to be a planner. So Ron? Once Ron is complete with his presentation, he's going to turn it over to Joanna Jansen, who is our consultant, helping us with our general plan that you'll learn more about in a little bit. Thank you.
Okay, good morning. So the first slide right up here just shows what you'll be doing the rest of the morning, so I won't go ahead and read the slide. By the way, I think the slide has more than 10 words on it, but we won't tell Bruce. So I think most of what I'll be talking about is the first bullet point, what is planning. The general plan is your exercise. It's the blueprint for the city. Where do different land uses go? What do they look like? Where do people live? Where do they work? Where do you go to the grocery store? And how do you get there? Do you get there by car? Do you get there by walking? Do you get there by bicycle? The vision statement we'll talk about. So many of you are getting ready to graduate, and so you've got a vision of what the future is for you. Does it include college? Where do you want to go to college? What do you want to do? Well, for the community, it's the same kind of thing. We've got a community now. Where do we want to be in 10, 20 years? I'm not sure if you've all started to think 10 or 20 years, but you've probably started to think at least the next 2 or 3 years. So it's a similar exercise except for the city. Land use alternatives, there are different alternatives, which Joanna will talk about. And then we'll get into 2 groups, about 10 each, to talk about the general plan. So what is city planning? We get this question a lot. Building division, like Kohar mentioned, is pretty easy. Make sure that the roof doesn't fall down. Make sure that there's enough exits in case there's a fire, you can get out. Code enforcement, you build something without a permit, they'll deal with you. Housing, we help people find a place to live. So what is planning? So one way that I've described it is the arrangement and the appearance of different land uses. So again, where's a single family? Where's multifamily? Where do people shop? Where do people work? And how they get there. So that's, in a nutshell, what planning is. I think one of the things that you all talked about very early on was the whole issue about a swimming pool. Where are we going to put a swimming pool? So that's the kind of things that, even though that's a park and recreation type of project, that's something that planning deals with. And that's very much on the local level. So I'm not sure how many of you know who the 5 city council members are here, and this is my pitch for local government, but everyone knows who the President of the United States is. Everybody knows probably who your senator is. And I don't know what you would think if there was an In-N-Out burger going right across the street from where you live. You might think, hey, it's a great idea because I happen to like In-N-Out. Or you might think, that is a terrible idea because there's going to be so much traffic, I'm not going to be able to get out of my house. Well, the President of the United States is not going to issue an opinion or is not going to have any authority over whether that In-N-Out goes across the street from you. But the council member, the mayor, Diane Pappen, who just spoke, she's the one who is going to, you elect her. They will be the ones who make the decisions that affect you more on a daily, day-to-day life. Because you've probably driven down the street and said, what is that thing that's going up there? Well, the President of the United States has nothing to do with that. Diane Pappen and the council members really decide, again, the arrangement of land uses and what they look like. So the stuff that you see that you either like or don't like, that really gets discussed at a local level. So how do we do this? So building consensus. There are 3 planners who are working on the general plan right now. They're not here today. Why are they not here today? They're at a workshop to talk about facilitation, because that's what we do. Building consensus, so those of you that were here for the exercise, building a consensus about the swimming pool is very difficult. So another example that I like to use whenever I speak to homeowners groups is we have all sorts of issues that we're trying to build consensus of. Is that difficult? Yes, because I think there's 20 of you here, and if we said, all right, we're gonna go out and get something to eat right now, how long and how much of a discussion would it take for 20 of you to decide where you're gonna go to eat? It's probably going to take quite a while. Well, yeah, I'm a vegetarian. Well, I don't want to eat, I don't like this kind of food. I have these food allergies. So building consensus is a lot of what we do. The other things that I would say that we deal with in terms of planning are a variety of issues. So for example, we had a planning commission meeting here the other night. One item was a single family home that one family is going to live in that the neighbors are not exactly happy with. So that's one item, one single family home. The next item we had was 300 townhouses that are going to replace 4 office buildings up in the Western Hills. So if you do decide to get into planning as a career, and Kohar was saying that she really didn't know what community development was before she started, one of the things I would say is you're going to deal with a variety of issues. It could be transportation, it could be the design of the building, it could be where they're located. And the one thing when people ask me about city planning, I say it is never boring, because my days are a lot about meetings. So on one hand, I might be meeting with somebody who wants to redevelop 10 acres with 1,000 dwelling units. So that's a relatively big project. And then right after that, dealing with a single family homeowner who's trying to get a second bathroom in the house, because it's really difficult for a single family to live in a house with just one bathroom, and they can't figure out how to squeeze it into their lot. So you can see the breadth of activities and the types of projects. So it really spans the large down to the very small. The commonality that they all have is they have a direct impact on the local community, the community that you live. So the last bullet point here is we have to address certain needs. And again, the last example was we need a swimming pool. Well, here you can see we have affordable housing, economic development, historic. So if we look at affordable housing and economic development, when we talk about building consensus, one of the difficulties is, all right, economic development, everybody needs a job, correct? Everybody's going to need to make money. Everyone needs to have a job, so the city needs to plan to bring jobs in. Well, if we bring jobs in, what else do we need? We need housing to have to allow everyone a place to live. So if you only have so much land, what is more important, and how do you balance the need for jobs and the fact that we have to provide housing? So that type of consensus is another thing that we deal with. What skills do planners use? Again, consensus, a vision for the future, and I'd like to talk about the last one. So Bruce was talking about the various ways to communicate. The last 2 bullet points, one of the reasons I got into planning is I'm not very good at math. You don't need to have a lot of math, but there are certain things like how many cars are going through, what can the intersection handle, and that's very technical data. So have you ever been in a class where the teacher is talking and there's a lot of words coming out of that person's mouth, but it's not really intelligible? And so part of it is present recommendations to the public in an accurate and understandable way. Because you're all sitting now, you're at a city council meeting. The one thing that uniformly makes people upset is when they ask a simple question, what's going to happen with the traffic if this project gets approved? Well, we've analyzed the level of service and the capacity of the roadway, and what we found is on an average PM peak hour daily flow that the traffic will be adequately handled given the mitigation measures that are proposed in the EIR. And the member of the public says, okay, I have no idea what you just said. So putting that into plain language, yeah, there's going to be about 100 cars. We think if people take the bus, we can get it down to 75. The intersection can handle another 100, so we should be good to go. I mean, it's not that simple, but putting things in plain language. So for those of you that have a skill with language, a skill with making complex ideas understandable to the general public, that's a lot about what we do. You know, Joanna and Carrie will talk about the exercise in terms of planning, but you can go online and look at the Planning Commission meetings. Again, a lot of it has to do with communication. You'll be presenting some ideas to the Rotary. The other thing I would say about public speaking is I don't know that it will ever cause harm. So if you're a brain surgeon and you make a mistake, okay, we have a little bit of an issue here. But if you're speaking at the Rotary in public, you know, that's not quite such a daunting task, because I think they're all rooting for you to be successful today. I wasn't sure if there was another slide coming up next. So at this point, I'd like to hand it off to Joanna Jansen. She'll explain more in detail the general plan and the exercise we have planned for today.
Thank you, Ron. Hi guys, my name is Joanna, and as Kohar mentioned, I am what is called a consultant. So Ron talked a little bit just now about what planners do and the different types of jobs that planners have. Ron and Kohar work for this city, then they focus on San Mateo. I'm a consultant doing planning work, and so what that means is that different cities and counties all over California can call me and hire me and get me to come and do planning in their community. So I've done the kind of planning that I'm doing here in San Mateo for communities all over the state, and I kind of do that same thing over and over again in a lot of different places, and I have to go out and win projects and convince cities to hire me, and that's how I make my living. Ron and Kohar stay here in San Mateo, for example, and they work very hard on issues that are very specific to San Mateo, and that's how they make their living. So if you're interested in planning as a field, just be aware that there's different types of planners and working at different levels. And there's also planners who work in the nonprofit field, especially in things like affordable housing, for example, that Ron was talking about. That's another type of planning that happens. So there's a lot of different ways that you can plan, and planning is extremely important. I know that things like the general plan or even the zoning code are things that you might not have heard of before, but they affect you and your families and your schools every day. Where you can shop, where you can eat, where you can live, what kind of places you might work in the future, or maybe you're working already. All of those decisions are made by people like Ron and Kohar and the City Council who you've heard from today. And it's really important to understand that you can also be involved in those decisions. And if you want to have a voice in how San Mateo or the community where you live looks and feels, all of those decisions can be influenced by the community. So I really applaud you for coming here today and for being willing to get up and start to practice holding the mic and talking, because it's so important to be able to have that skill of not being afraid to stand up, tell your city council or your planning staff what you would like to see in your community. And that's part of what we're going to do here today. So we're going to talk about a specific kind of document that's called the general plan. If you for most people, if you've interacted at all with the city government, it's probably been at the level of the zoning code, which is the thing that talks about stuff like whether or not you can add onto your house, or how many parking spots there has to be, or if you want to open a business, can you open a hair salon, or can you open a travel agent, or can you open a daycare? Those kinds of really specific decisions that are kind of about a building or a specific parcel. But before we get to that, we have to set really big picture guidance, as Ron said, kind of the blueprint for the community about what kinds of land uses are going to go where. So working backwards, that zoning code is really specific to the building, but before that we might have a layer of specific plans, like for example, all around the Hillsdale BART station and everything that's happening in Bay Meadows here in San Mateo, for example. Before that, there's the general plan. And that sets the vision overall for the community and the very general guidance about where do homes go, where do businesses go, where does shopping go, do we have enough schools, how big are the schools, do we need more land? All of those kinds of questions are really decided at the general plan level. So that's what we're going to be focusing on today. The general plan starts with the vision for the community, and we worked really hard several months ago with the community, including at last year's Youth and Government Day, to get input about what people want to see in San Mateo in the future. And we came up with what I think is a really inspiring vision statement, and this is what we're going to be working towards for the rest of our planning process in the general plan. So what we heard from the community, and we got really strong agreement on this, is that San Mateo wants to be a vibrant, livable, diverse, and healthy community that respects the quality of its neighborhoods, fosters a flourishing economy, is committed to equity, and is a leader in environmental sustainability. I have to tell you that I've been a planner for about 20 years now. A lot of these concepts, things like environmental sustainability, equity, health, are things that planners were not as focused on 20 years ago when I started. And now they're very central to our profession and what the planning work that we do every day. So planning as a field is evolving, and you guys are going to be part of the next generation to keep pushing that forward. And these are the values that we've expressed that support that vision: diversity, balance, inclusivity, prosperity, and resiliency. So the general plan throughout is going to be really trying to put San Mateo on a path to achieve this vision in the coming decades. And to do that, we're going to make sure that we continue to engage the public. So public engagement means getting the public, the community members, involved in the decision making about plans and just what's going to happen here in San Mateo. So we've had workshops with the community, including, like I said, today and last year's Youth and Government Day. We've had pop-up events where we go out to the community, because especially when we talk about those concepts of things like diversity and equity and inclusion, what we realize is that folks who might be working 2 or 3 jobs to try to afford to live here, or folks who are raising a big family that they have to take care of, maybe people who are taking care of aging parents that need a lot of care, they can't just waltz down to the library on a Saturday and spend 3 hours telling us what they would like to see. They have a lot of other obligations in their life, and it's not fair to expect them to come to us. So increasingly, we see the need to go out to the community and find a lot of different ways to engage with people. We want to try to speak to them in terms that they can understand and in languages that they can understand. So we have a whole different variety of events. We're increasingly doing things online, through social media, but of course there's also the traditional decision-making framework of city council hearings, like you learned a little about today, planning commission meetings, etc. So we try to create a wide variety of ways for people to get involved in the process. And one of those important ways is through the website. I think a lot of us are very comfortable now online, and most households in San Mateo have at least some access to the internet. So we do have a website for this project, and if your interest is sparked today, you can certainly go here and find out more. There's a lot of information at www.strivesanmateo.org. And what we're going to be focusing on today is the one specific component of the general plan update process. This is called the general plan land use map. And it's important because the colors on this map decide what can be built where, at what intensity, like what Kohar was talking about. How tall can the buildings be? How many of them can there be? How close together can they be? And what kind of buildings are they going to be? Are they going to be homes? Are they going to be office buildings? Are they going to be homes built over restaurants or nail salons? All of that is decided by the colors on this map. So if you own property in San Mateo, then what color your property is on this map determines what you can do on it. And even if you live in San Mateo, the colors on this map affect you as well. So what color gets on what spot of this map is really important, and a lot of people care a lot about that. Especially when you get older, you own property, you care a lot about what you can do with it, whether or not it's going to be safe and enjoyable for you and your family to live there, whether or not you're going to be able to make money from it, whether or not you're going to be able to sell it to somebody else someday. All of those are very high stakes decisions for a lot of people, and they care a lot, and they come to talk to us a lot about what they want to see. So to figure out how and if this map should change, we have a whole alternatives process, as that Ron alluded to. So alternatives meaning, choices. Well, this is the place in the process where we do that, those steps that Mayor Papin was talking about in terms of gathering consensus, formulating ideas, considering trade-offs, and then making tough decisions. We're going to go through the multi-step process that you see up on this screen to think about different ways that San Mateo might grow. Just to give you really basic imaginary examples, because we're still in the very early stages. As you can see, we're only at step 2, and you guys are going to help us with this today. But maybe the land use alternatives that we come up with, they might say, well, San Mateo has enough housing, but we want a lot more jobs. Some people might say that. Other people might say, San Mateo already has too many jobs, and we should really focus on building more housing. So those might be 2 different types of alternatives that we would come up with and study through this evaluation process, and then we'll come back to the community and we'll say things like, all right, if you build a lot more jobs and not very much more housing, here's what we think will happen. If you build a lot more housing and not very many more jobs, here's what we think will happen. So helping, did I say 2 different things there? Anyway, the opposite. Helping people understand different possible futures and the consequences of those, and then helping them use that information to choose among and hopefully build consensus about what is the right choice for the future. And it probably will not surprise you to know that it's likely to be somewhere in the middle of those 2 extremes. So that's the process that we're going to be working on, and you're going to be doing that today. What the challenge for us as planners is that we do think that San Mateo is going to continue to grow. In reality, we think that in 20 years from now, there's probably going to be both more jobs and more housing in San Mateo. A lot of the communities that I work with throughout California really wish that they could kind of stop growing. Some of them are feeling a little bit overwhelmed. Certainly some of the residents are. There's not really a great mechanism for doing that. Certainly in California, it's very hard to say, okay, not only are we not going to build anything more, we're not going to provide any more housing for the people who might already be working here. That's not very fair, because those people have to live somewhere. So what that might mean is that those people actually live out in Stockton or Tracy, and they have to drive all the way here because their job is in San Mateo. They need to make a living. So that's actually not that great for us in San Mateo either, because they're still on our roads creating traffic and using our services. And it's not great for them, right? Because they have a huge commute every day, and that's just kind of crushing. So we'd want to find a way that we can have equity with people being able to find housing here who need it. So how are we going to accommodate that, and where are we going to accommodate? We've got really some tough decisions to make when we confront numbers like this, and think about how we can make a community that is vibrant and healthy and sustainable and resilient and all the things that San Mateo wants to be, while still making room for the people who will be living and working here in the future. So the other thing, of course, that we have to take into account is environmental hazards. Where is it safe for people to live? There's a lot of parts of San Mateo, as you can see, especially those parts east of 101, closer to the bay, that might be affected by flooding or sea level rise in the future. What you see on this map in the blue is if there's 18 inches of sea level rise over the next 80 years or so, parts of San Mateo that could be at risk of flooding. The lot of blue on that map. So what does that mean about where we're going to build and how we're going to build? And up in the hills, there's a different set of problems, right? We're increasingly experiencing in California these really serious wildfires. So do we want to stick more people living up in the hills? Maybe there's only twisty roads, one way in and out. Is that a safe place to build a lot more housing for 8,000 more people who are going to live here over the next 20 years? Those are the kinds of questions that we have to answer. So we've gone through this process over the past several months to identify what we call study areas. These are 10 areas that you can see outlined in color on this map, where we think it's probably most likely, given some of the environmental factors that you just saw, given the way that San Mateo is today, and all of the development, the patterns of development that are already in place. And we think that these are some of the most likely areas to change over the next 20 years. These are maybe the areas that our best guess is that these are probably the areas that might be best suited to accommodate some of the change and growth that we're anticipating. How is that going to happen? How's it going to look? That's what we're still trying to figure out and decide and test. But we're going to focus our analysis on these areas. That's what you're going to be looking at in just a few minutes when we go to our breakout groups. So as we're thinking about these study areas, and we're going to ask you what you think should go here, here's some of the principles that we think about when as professional planners who do this kind of work. We think about issues about housing and housing affordability. One thing that we know, because we've studied this and counted this in San Mateo, is that when people live close, especially to Caltrain, they tend to drive less. And one thing that Mayor Papin and your other council members hear about a lot is traffic and how bad it is. So I think we can all agree that it would be great if there were less traffic. I saw a billboard in San Francisco not too long ago that I really felt, which was, you are not in traffic, you are traffic, right? So you're driving and you're like, what are all these other people doing on the road? Why are they in front of me? Well, you're on the road too. So why are you on the road? You're trying to get to your job, you're trying to get to school, you're trying to pick your kid up from daycare, whatever the issues are, everybody has their reason, right? So if we can give them options for how to get around without having to get in their car, then maybe all of us can drive a little bit less. And that's one thing that's going to help, because we know there's going to be more people. So how can we get fewer of those people to choose to be in their car every day and give them options? I think a lot of us, if we had safe and convenient options besides sitting behind the wheel, we would probably choose to do that. So how can we help put people in places where they have access to those options? A lot of different principles here to consider, mixing uses together, and of course, always collaborating both with the community members and other agencies, like the county, the Caltrain, all sorts of agencies that affect life in San Mateo but are not part of the city of San Mateo. So we're about to break up, and I think we're going to be half and half in 2 different conference rooms, and we're going to be doing this small group exercise very similar to what we do with adults when we ask about the future of the community and how we're going to grow. We're going to introduce ourselves, talk about what you hope for, what you would be most important to you thinking about the future of San Mateo in 2040. And come up with some ideas for how things might change in those parts of San Mateo, the study areas that were circled on that map. And then prepare for you to go and say to the Rotary what your vision is for the future of San Mateo. And you're going to need to pick a spokesperson. After we've done all of that, we'll go to lunch, and then it'll be your chance to stand up and talk and explain what you guys think should happen. And then just a final plug, this general plan process is going to be going on for a couple more years still. You, I hope, will be part of the future of San Mateo. Part of the question that we want to ask you when we get in your small groups is, are you going to live here? Do you see yourself living here? If so, what appeals to you about it? If not, why not? What would prevent you from living here? What would you want in a place that you would live instead? So I hope that at least some of you will be in San Mateo. I heard that some of you are already involved in government, and others of you are here because you're really interested in being involved in government in the future. So now is a chance, right now, to get involved in these decisions through the general plan process. We're going to have a bunch of events going on. Right now, over the next couple months, we have events, and over the next couple of years, we're going to have events. So check out strivesanmateo.org and be part of the process. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank all of you for being here today. Okay, taking advantage of this opportunity to come and learn about local government is really an important thing. So many people who live in cities don't really understand the full scope of what local government does for them. The thing is, this is really where the rubber meets the road, okay? There is so much infrastructure in this city that this city is maintaining. The roads alone are not simple, but one of the most important things is, at home, when you're using your plumbing, things go away. They just kind of magically disappear. That's not a simple feat. It's a big project. Right now, this city is spending nearly $1 billion making sure that we're upgrading our facilities, and we're adding new facilities. You're going to see a lot of work in the streets, putting in new, bigger pipes to make sure everything goes away more efficiently and gets cleaned up better at the wastewater treatment plant, because we need to make sure that whatever goes into the bay out of that plant, or we're trying to create actually water that can be reused. Okay, so we have a lot of big irons in the fire, but that's just one of the things I wanted to mention. As a council member, life's not easy. We have a lot of things we have to listen to and work on, and we spend a lot of time reading a lot of things that are sent to us by many people who live in the community. We have to consider all points of view. We come here and we sit here sometimes in a study session to learn more about certain subjects. Other times we're at a hearing. It's a formal public hearing. And testimony is being brought forth. Many members of the public, like you, come up here to this microphone, and they tell us why we're talking about is important to them and how they feel about it. And we need to weigh all of these considerations, because that's all we are, is people who were elected to represent the people in the city. And I take that part very seriously. Speaking about being elected to represent the people, I want to move on to another subject, voting. I don't know, how many kids are in, the 12th grade? Okay, a good percentage. Well, for you especially, this year, there's a new law that says if you're going to be 18 by the time the general election happens next November, you should register as soon as, I think it's 16 and a half. You might be able to register now. Okay, you should check into it. You can go onto the county's election website. They have news all about it. Does anybody know? Can you register now? Has anybody checked that out? Yeah, I'm seeing heads nodding. So I would recommend you do that, because I got to tell you something. You're living in a world where a lot of people are just looking at government and shaking their heads and thinking, what are these people doing? Government, national government, some state governments are kind of dysfunctional. You're very lucky. You live in California. You live here. We're really working hard to make sure we have clean air, we have clean water, that we provide for gun violence protection. We're working on that. I'm going to be bringing forth a measure for us to do that's going to increase safety around guns. Also, I've brought forth recently 2 measures for us to do resolutions. One is to support House Resolution 763, which is in support of a carbon tax and dividend. So this will tax industry who is releasing mass amounts of carbon into the atmosphere. Who knows what that leads to? Climate change. Climate change. Okay. Climate change, good thing, bad thing? Really bad thing. So we're working to eliminate that by charging industry more every year for every little bit that they release into our atmosphere. That serves as an incentive for them to change the way they do business. So as we're working to eliminate carbon, if that gets passed by the House and then the Senate and signed by the President, lots of different steps things need to go through. But if that happens, it will be leading to doing what we're already doing a lot of in California, which is working to reduce, and we are reducing. We have our own cap and trade law, right? So we're working to reduce, actively working to reduce carbon emissions every single day. This state has SB 375, which is a climate law. Okay, it goes back, I think it's 6 or 7 years old. But what it says is that we have to take into account everything we do. We have to check all the environmental impacts. So if you're going to build, you guys were just talking about land use, I think, in the other room. Building causes environmental impacts. And some of those environmental impacts are carbon emissions. Carbon emissions come from the use of natural gas in buildings. They also come from the use of cars that come and go from those buildings where they're located. It makes a difference whether they're located near transit, a train or bus or a BART like a subway, whatever. If they're located close to one of those facilities and people don't have to use their car, they can ride one of those hopefully electric, and I'll talk more about electricity in a minute, types of transportation, then we're doing great because we're cutting carbon emissions. We're cutting down on climate change. We're reversing that trend. We're trying to go back to, I think, 1980 levels right now with carbon emissions. It's a big haul, but we're doing it in lots of big steps. One of the ways is the laws that I just mentioned, but another is I'm a member of the board at Peninsula Clean Energy. We're a community choice aggregator, which means we formed a new Joint Powers Authority, which is a legal term for a group of municipalities, cities, the county, that join together to create a new body. This particular body has the function of purchasing renewable energy on the open market. And we have actually physically displaced Pacific Gas and Electric as the default electricity provider. Right now, 97.5% of the people in San Mateo County get their electricity from Peninsula Clean Energy. And that energy is at the minimum 90% greenhouse gas free versus PG&E's, which is about 60% greenhouse gas free. So you can pay a couple of dollars a month more and you would have 100% renewable energy. All solar, wind, geothermal, and that's basically it, some biomass, I think. So as a council member, I serve on Peninsula Clean Energy as a board member and a member of the executive committee. I'm also on the South Bayside Waste Management Authority, which has the contracts with Recology. You see the garbage trucks coming around, okay? So we have a contract with them to collect everything. We have another contract with a company called South Bay Recycling. They take all the stuff out of the blue bin, the recycling stuff, they sort it all out, and they're able to send it to places where those things can be reused instead of landfilled. And I'll talk about the landfill in a minute too. And the other stuff does go to the landfill. I'm on the Zero Landfill Committee. We're working to reduce that stuff to zero as closely as possible. But the truth is, landfill is a vital but really limited use of land. We don't want to waste any more land piling a bunch of garbage in there. Land is too valuable a resource, and it produces really unhealthy outcomes because huge carbon emissions, methane mostly, come from dumps, and lots of nasty stuff runs out and down the valley into the creek, and it has to be captured now and treated. You can't just let it run into the creek. So that's another thing. I'm also on the HART board, which is the Housing Endowment and Regional Trust. Who's interested in affordable housing here? I think a lot of people know that affordable housing is a really vital need, right? I'm working to make sure we're building enough affordable housing with this board. It's called HART, the Housing Endowment and Regional Trust. We make short-term initial loans to help developers, nonprofit developers of affordable housing, be able to acquire the land or get over certain hurdles that they need early money for to be able to get to where they can build that housing. That's really an important thing. And then the other thing I'm doing is I'm on the board of commute.org. And what we do is we're making last mile connections. I mentioned the train earlier as a way people can get to work and back or other places they need to go without using their car. The train is so much more efficient energy-wise. Even the diesel train that's running now is better than all those 60,000 riders a day would be in their cars, right? That number is going to triple over the next 10 years. There are going to be 180 to 220 or 30 riders on that train. It will be electrified by 2022 or 23, so that'll cut a lot of carbon emissions. Right now they're burning diesel. The electricity will make it a lot cleaner. But the whole point is we have a huge problem with traffic congestion. So what commute.org does is help people get from where they live, up on the hills or other places, to the employment centers and or to the transit centers. They stop at the Caltrain stops. They go to the big business campuses, and they make those connections with people without riding their car. And they're free. So if you ever see a commute.org shuttle stopping someplace in your neighborhood, you should look it up because you can get on that thing and ride around to wherever you need to go, certain places where it stops for free. Okay. And that said, I don't know how much more I'm going to say. The world is a big, scary place. You are the people who the world needs to meet the needs of. You need to come in and tell us what you need. You need to write to Jackie Spear, who would love to hear from you. Please, your congresswoman completely is trying very hard to create the world that you need to be able to live in. She's in favor of, I mentioned HR 763. She's in favor of the climate. Actually, another thing I did the other day was I brought to the council the county's emergency climate declaration. Last month, the county did an emergency climate declaration saying we really need to turn up our efforts to make sure we're improving the outcomes with our climate and not making things worse. So this involves dealing with sea level rise directly. San Mateo County is really drastically affected compared to any place else in California because we have rising water on both the bay side and the coast side. We need to deal with these issues. So that said, please take the steps to get registered and vote. Become informed as you can. And the informed voter is the most important thing that any democracy can have. Participation. The word democracy is government of the people. Now, people will tell you we have a republic in this country. It is a republic-style government, but we do things democratically by voting. We have direct representation, okay? And you can influence the people that make decisions. So don't hesitate. Don't be shy. We're just regular people up here, the people in Sacramento, the people in Washington. Some of them start thinking they're quite a bit above others, but they need to get real letters and hear real voices. Okay? Please take steps to make sure that we're making the world that you want to have. Thank you all very much.
All right, guys, so now we are going to work on our individual groups and break out into 2 groups in the conference rooms that are out in the hallways here.
Thank you, President Ann. Fellow Rotarians, this is always one of my favorite programs in terms of youth and government. According to our staff this morning, this is the 81st Youth and Government program that the City of San Mateo has sponsored. I don't know that Rotary has been involved for all those years. I did share, though, with the students this morning that I was not at the first Youth and Government program. John DeRusi, I think you were there, but I know that I wasn't there. Anyway, thank you for hosting our students and our staff today. As you will hear, they really did work on a very, very timely issue, which is the city's general plan. And so before the students speak, I'm going to be introducing Ron Munikawa, our Chief of Planning, who's going to get a little bit of update about the general plan and how people are looking to get involved and how you can get involved as a resident or a business person here in San Mateo. Before I introduce Ron, though, I do want to give a shout out to Ann, President Ann, for coming this morning. I don't know that we've had many Rotary presidents in the past who have been there, so thank you for coming. I also want to acknowledge all of our city staff who were involved this morning in terms of facilitating groups, getting kids to and from schools, getting them here. And so let me just read them off, and if you could just stand. And we can acknowledge all of the hard work. This is a really important effort, and it does not go off without a lot of staff time and effort. So for our staff who have assisted this morning, Zach Radcliffe, Kelvin Coggins, Christine Peralta, and Brandon Parra, who are really the organizers of it, Scott Leslie, Bob Palacio, and Mary Way from our Planning and Community Development Department. So please give them Oh, and Alex Greer, sorry. I ran over you, Alex. And again, to City Manager Drew Corbett, who came out this morning and give a little bit of overview about city government. We were also very happy that we had Mayor Pappen address the group, and also our own city council member and fellow Rotarian Rick Bonilla. So we're very excited. I'm going to go ahead and turn the program over to Ron Munikawa, who again is going to talk a little bit about the general plan, and then introduce the various student presentations for you this afternoon. There you go, Ron.
Hello, and thank you to the Rotary for again hosting Youth and Government Day, particularly given the subject. The reason that I'm here is we're talking about the general plan. So looking around the room, I know many of you have been following the general plan, have been participating in meetings. For those of you that have done so, we'd encourage you to continue to do so. And hopefully, if you haven't been involved, you don't know very much about it, perhaps after today, and particularly after the student presentations, you'll be motivated to become a part. Because frankly, in this effort, one of our biggest challenges is getting a broad spectrum of the community to participate in all the workshops and the direction we're taking. So just quickly, what is a general plan? As I look around the room, I see a lot of successful business people here. So you all have your own businesses, and you're looking at where are you going to go in the next 20 years, how you're going to get there, what the resources you need, what the impacts of your growth are going to have, and how you're going to achieve the goals that you have set for your company. And that might be along with your shareholders. Well, the general plan is the vision until 2040 for the city of San Mateo. The shareholders are represented by the city council, but they involve everybody who's in this room, whether you work, live, or otherwise visit the city of San Mateo. There are a lot of things that are covered, and I'm not going to go through all the state mandates. You have to look at this. But the things that we're looking for are: how do we arrange land uses in San Mateo? How do people get around? How do we make sure that there's sufficient resources for everything? So not surprisingly, we've had a number of workshops, and this is probably going to be a familiar theme. The need for housing comes up at a lot of them. The issue of traffic comes up at a lot of them. But there are some that you might not otherwise consider. We had a pop-up event at the September Nights in downtown, and somebody said, you know, San Mateo's an aging community, and I go out walking with my grandmother, but you know what? There's not a bench. There's no place to sit down, so there's a walking path, But my grandmother, she's in her 80s, so those types of things are things that you can mention, as well as one thing that we do here is I'd like my children to come back and live in San Mateo. Unfortunately, they're living with me now because they can't afford to find housing that is at a price point that they can afford. So that's a very common theme. So again, we're addressing housing, land use, transportation, a whole number of things. Many of you are familiar with climate change. Right out here, we have San Francisco Bay, the whole issue of sea level rise. That's another thing we'll be taking a look in the long term. So again, similar to all your businesses that have a long-term plan, the general plan is a long-term plan for the city of San Mateo. I will say that this is the most significant general plan update we've had since we did the first real revamping in 1990. We've had, I think, 2 or 3 revisions, but they've been mainly, okay, let's make sure the demographics are correct, let's fix this thing over here. This is going to be a comprehensive overhaul. I think times have changed. For those of you who have been around since the 1990s, you know the housing issues are more acute. When you leave, maybe even at 2 o'clock this afternoon, you'll see that traffic issues are more acute. The issues of climate change, I don't think 20 years ago anyone was talking about climate change. Maybe some of you progressive folks were. That was not a topic. And who knows what topics that you'll raise that are going to be at the forefront of the next 20 years of the city of San Mateo's development. So again, that's why we're encouraging everyone's participation. So one of the things that we've tried to do is to have an extensive outreach. And with the risk of offending everybody in this room, I will say that as we go to general plan workshops, the demographic is very much the demographic that we see in this room today. And so I think one of the challenges is to get people involved who don't have time, don't have the resources, or frankly, they're working 2 jobs so they can't come out to general plan workshops. So with that, there's a few events. We did the September nights. We are going to have an ice cream social at the Boys and Girls Club on October 30th. So we'll get a good pre-Halloween sugar rush going there. We'll also have a booth at the CSM Farmers Market. And on November 16th, which is a Saturday in the morning, we're going to have a general plan workshop at King Center. Where are we now? We've established a general vision for the city, vision statement. We've identified areas. Where does it seem like change will occur in the city of San Mateo? So now it's going to be, what are the alternatives? What do we see in these different areas? What do we see in terms of housing, transportation, jobs, could be offices, retail growth. So we are now in the stage of putting together the alternatives for what San Mateo will look like to the year 2040. So at this point, I'd like to offer a perspective from all those that are involved in youth and government. So I think we have 4 speakers, if you can join me up here from the 2 groups. So I think what's interesting is you'll hear some common refrains, but I think you'll also hear some things that are unique to San Mateo. So if you could just go ahead, I think this will be group 1. Introduce yourself, what high school you're from, and then just go ahead and present your findings.
Thank you. So my name is Yana Georgeski. I'm a senior at Aragon High School.
My name's Jennifer, and I'm a senior at San Mateo High School.
My name is Brianna Huang, and I am a senior at Aragon High School.
My name is Allison Chan, and I'm a sophomore at Hillsdale High School.
My name is Milika Afuamango, and I am a junior at Aragon High School.
All right, so first subject, housing. We at Youth in Government deliberated on the pros and cons of implementing housing in the various study areas of San Mateo. So what we did was consider a variety of factors like congestion pertaining to transportation and the multitude of like buildings in a general area. We also considered proximity to schools and entertainment facilities when deciding what areas would be most optimal for implementing new housing. So we not only want to perpetuate housing, but also affordable housing in order to basically increase the ability of immigrants, single parents, and minorities, make it more more tangible for them to live in the San Mateo area. So the first area we came up for implementing more housing was Area 1, that's kind of along the El Camino. You might have driven past there and seen like empty buildings and lots. So we thought this was a good place to put some more apartments because it would help with the transportation congestion, that area being so close to the Caltrain. It would also put more housing close to the good entertainment facilities like the Hillsdale Mall and downtown San Mateo. And the second place we came up with was Area 9, which is kind of by the Marina and the Hillsdale Inn. And we thought about implementing apartments here, but one of the complications would be transportation and parking, because a lot of people feel that there's parking congestion already there, since most houses have more than one car that they have. And then the last one that we came up with, the last study area, was Area 10, which is kind of near Target and Bridgepoint. So there's a lot of industrial and office buildings there, a lot of them not in use or being under construction, and we thought that instituting housing here would decrease employees' commute, the ones that already work there, as well as stimulate local businesses, because people would be able to get to like Target and those places more, or like easier. And especially in this place, transportation would have to be improved, because I know one of our group members said that he had to walk a mile to get to the closest bus stop. And so transportation with housing would be something that we focused on in Area 10.
So also discussing in our group, Area 6, we thought it would be kind of like an interesting idea to maybe have a community garden, especially near the Shoreview area, since there is Writers Park, which is really a nice park and really enjoyable, but I know there's this path that is not very clean and not very many people like know of and walk around, but I think having a garden and having a place where people can really enjoy the scenery in the area around there would be really good for the community, to have people just like go and actually enjoy the space and area that is there. Also in Area 7, having maybe a community center near the College of San Mateo, especially like an area where people can come together and really like have events and like really kind of come together more as a community and kind of build that like strength of like, you know, we're San Mateo, we should be together and we should join and go into the future that we all really want to have here.
The last thing that our group discussed, kind of going off of what Yana said earlier, is transportation and traffic. The first area we talked about was downtown San Mateo. Obviously, the traffic in downtown is really bad sometimes, and we discussed having more public transportation that goes in and out of downtown, such as shuttles, and just having more buses that run through downtown, as well as implementing some more parking garages. And I believe that one parking garage is already being on the way of being built right now, so that's great. And the second place is the CSM and Laurelwood area. And a lot of the group mates that I worked with mentioned that there really aren't any public transportation lines that run through that area, so adding some buses or shuttles that run through from CSM to the rest of San Mateo would be really helpful. One more really general thing is that we discussed updating like all the buses we have right now to more environmentally friendly options, such as having electric buses or just buses that are just more eco-friendly. And this would be pretty expensive to carry out, but that's just an idea we had. And just building off of what Yana said earlier, places like Bridgepoint and Marina, and like on El Camino, their parking is really difficult sometimes, and it'll just be really helpful if we encourage more public transportation so that there isn't as much traffic. Thank you.
Hi, so we were from the other group, and our group also talked about transportation being a really big issue for youth in San Mateo. And we feel like it's especially important for those coming in and out of San Mateo, especially, for example, in Foster City, where there's a lot of congestion and traffic in between those areas. So making sure that we have public transportation over there. Another issue that we talked about was the idea of free parking or having more parking spots. And on one hand, this might be really useful because it's more convenient for people and will lead for like less roaming around for parking because there aren't a lot of things like Uber in San Mateo. However, on the other hand, this might contradict the ideas of taking public transportation if there are more parking spots, because people will think that they can just drive more, and it goes against part of the vision statement saying that we want environmental sustainability, whereas public transportation could be bigger towards that. So that was just one of our ideas. Another one was to implement transportation systems similar to FCX, which are like in and out of San Mateo, and to have commuter checks be a bigger idea so that people will be more encouraged to take public transportation. We also want to increase the transit closer to housing areas so that people will be more encouraged to take it and for it to come more often so that it's like around 20 minutes instead of right now an hour where it's not as efficient for them. One idea that we had, which is a pretty big idea, was to have a BART system to go into San Mateo so that people can go out into East Bay. And we would want to put this in like Area 3, which is where the Caltrain station is, and just have it connect off of that. That would allow people to go to more areas. We want more accessibility for low-income families and students. And one way to do this would be to give out Clipper cards at school, as we've given out library cards in the past before that allow students to use these public systems more and so that they know more about them. And we want the transportation system to be universal towards bikes and scooters, because right now we have the Lime bike and Lime scooter system, but to take that you have to use a credit card, and a lot of students can't use that because they don't have a credit card. So if all of it was connected with one universal Clipper card, that would allow for students to use these resources more. We want to make sure that all of these resources are more known to people, including commute.org, which is a less costly commute system in and out and around San Mateo County. That was something that one of the council members talked about this morning, and I think many of us didn't know that existed until they talked about it today. So to make sure that if we have these resources, that they're known to the public. And that's it. Thank you for your time.
Hi everyone, I'm in group 2 as well with Allison, and I'll discuss to you guys about these 3 subjects. First one is retail and supporting our fellow businesses. We have a lot of local businesses that we can go to, but it's just a matter of supporting them. And for us, we were thinking about it, and we were thinking about upgrading some of them, and there's some new businesses that are outside of this county line that we can just bring in. I know for sure one of our group members noted that there was one that she wanted to come in that will bring so much social attention to it, but it was just there was no actual business of it existing here, so she wanted to bring it here. And I believe that's a great idea, especially for us since we are apparently a part of Silicon Valley that I was told, and we're in the age of business at this point. A second idea that was placed was throwing away trash properly. We have such a beautiful community, and we're all such beautiful individuals, so why can't our community just be as beautiful as us? Seriously. Because, to be honest, there is so much trash out there. that's like on the floor when it shouldn't be. It should be like recycled properly, or like if it's plastic, taken and reused properly so people can reuse it and save our like environment, and especially at this time. And we need to protect our community, because for the next generation, what will they think? Will they even see our community anymore? That is the question. And for the last one, cultural events. For me, I am a child of immigrants, and it was important to me to note this fact, is that like we have such a diverse community. We have Chinese, we have Korean, we have Tongans, we have Samoans, we have Uveans, we have Germans. We have all these amazing and beautiful cultures that we need to preserve, because last I heard was some of these cultures are dying and declining, which is sad. But we need to like commemorate these cultures. And so what I thought is to have like these designated places to celebrate these cultures. And if we can't have those designated places, at least use some rec centers to celebrate these cultures individually, like have a weekend full of Tongan Language Week, or like do a Chinese cultural activity, stuff like that, so we can preserve our future and teach the next generation about their identity, about their culture, about who they are as a whole. And that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So those were a lot of great ideas. Some of them are the first time we've heard them. Others, I think, build upon some common themes that we've heard. What happened at Youth and Government Day today will be commemorated. You'll see that Cameron is running the video. If you can remember, strivesanmateo.org. That's a website that's got all the reports, all the videos. And if you're like me, your memory's not that good. If you just go into your browser, San Mateo General Plan, I checked this morning, it'll automatically direct you to that site. So if you can't remember strivesanmateo.org, just plug in your browser, San Mateo General Plan, you can go right there. There'll be opportunities to comment. And certainly we would encourage not only the people in this room, but anybody you know who has an idea, everyone has an idea that they've been putting in your ear for the last 5 years about, the city should do this. Well, I would encourage them to come to a general plan workshop, to come to see some of these events, because right now, like I said, this is the most significant general plan update that we've had since 1990. And I don't know whether the folks in this room like the development that's taking place, like the nature of things that are occurring, like the housing, the offices, the circulation system, but many of those were put in place and the policies for those in 1990, and they're coming to fruition through the 2000s today. So I think it's interesting, during Youth and Government, we had several people who talked about their next generation. Well, this is your ability to not only impact the environment that you're living in today, but for future generations, so that when someone drives by and says, how did that get there? Well, I was at the general plan meetings and we were talking about what we should do with that site, and here's what we came to a conclusion about. So again, this is an opportunity to more directly impact what the community looks like, what services are provided, and ultimately who is going to be living and working in the city of San Mateo. So that concludes my remarks. Thank you.